right now.
We need order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here. Here.
All right, I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Mr. Houghton, second. Dr. Marion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next we have comments from our public. Microphone. Just to remind you before we begin, please remember this is a board meeting rather than a public forum. The primary purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the board in a timely manner. As such, please keep the following in mind when presenting comments to the board. Individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes and to 1 appearance per person. Also, the board president may limit comments of a repetitive nature on the same topic. Generally, comments or questions directed to the board will not be answered during the meeting. Finally, the Board of Education would like to remind speakers they are responsible for any potentially defamatory comments made during the public comment portion of the meeting. Right. First, we have Arnie Dinoff.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Arnie A.C. Dinoff, District Public Advocate. First of all, I want to go over the consent agenda. I wanted to talk about item A, 2025 to 2025 or 27 panorama agreement. This agreement is for surveys, and so it's in the amount of $94,500, and you could get these free on the internet. If you ever participated in a survey with like SurveyMonkey or other survey outfits that are on the internet, they're free of charge and it costs taxpayers absolutely zero. So I want you to have some discussion and debate rather than rubber stamping this consent agenda. Also, the 2025 to 2026 Renaissance Near Pod Agreement, that also needs to be looked into. Do we really need to spend that money? And the ProCare agreement for 25-26, item O. Item Q on the agenda with the City of St. Peters. I haven't had a chance to review it, but I would hope it'd be the same as in the past, a 50-50 agreement for 9 or 10 months. We don't want to pay for the other months where they're doing other duties of patrol for the City of St. Peters. When it comes to the cell phone use, I just want to make sure that these are gradual disciplinary action and that it's going to be curbed within a few months of being implemented this fall. And the other thing I want to talk about is the lawsuit on SB number 3. It's my understanding the attorney that we have is going to charge $200. I called their office, and if a partner gets involved, they're going to be charging $690 to $750, depending on which partner is involved in the case. Now, the typical average client pays between $375 to $750 an hour, and that's through Tooth, Keeney, Cooper, Jackstead, PC. And so I understand budgeted or is potential is $30,000 to $50,000, and it's contingent on cost sharing of the parties involved. You know, this is talking about tax credits for sporting events, which I oppose. I think it should be $3 million instead of the $6 million. The $4 billion for billionaires to build stadiums, I was totally opposed to. But when it comes to tax credits for homestead damage for 8,500 tornado victims, I was definitely for. And the property tax credits, the only unconstitutional portion of that would be the 33 counties that were exempt from the legislation. And I hate to take away tax breaks for our citizens. They deserve it. Our taxes are just getting totally out of control. Every 60 cents on every dollar is paid to some form of a tax or a fee. And finally, the $37,353, we need to be cognizant of federal cuts and the $1 billion in state deficit funding
Lloyd,
for
you're up next,
2027.
please. Have a seat now.
Thank you. You need to be respectful.
And you
And if I
need
go
to.
over a couple
You
seconds, it doesn't
Sorry.
matter. If
You
were,
need to sit down
have you heard
or
of
leave.
decorum?
It's that simple.
No, I don't have to leave.
You do.
It's a public building and it's a public meeting
Sit.
under Chapter 610. You're not
Come
the
on.
queen. Dictator. Queen dictator.
All right, good evening, Fort Zumwalt Board of Education. My name is Hunter Wood. I'm the newly elected Fort Zumwalt Education Association President. I just want to take a moment to introduce myself to all of you, for those of you that do not know me. In addition to serving on this role, I am a special education teacher at DeBray Middle School. Every day I have the privilege of working alongside dedicated educators who have their best interest to ensure every student is seen, supported, and given opportunities to succeed, regardless of the challenges they face. Together, our staff and community have built Fort Zumwalt into one of the top performing districts in Missouri. We have done this by working closely with our parents, our community, and working to provide a world-class public education for over the 17,000 students we serve across 27 schools. Tonight, I'm here to speak in support of the district's proposed action to oppose Senate Bill 3. While Senate Bill 3 is being presented as a tax freeze, what it truly represents is a freeze on student funding. If this measure was approved in St. Charles County, it will strip millions of dollars each year from our schools, money that is essential for things like reading and math interventions, advanced placement and college prep courses, career training and skilled trade pathways, and mental health and behavioral supports for our students. As a special education teacher, I see firsthand that it will be our most vulnerable students that will feel these cuts first and worst. The supports they need, the interventions that they rely on, and the programs that allow them to thrive are all under risk under Senate Bill 3. But this doesn't just impact our students. It impacts our staff and our community's ability to keep our top talent here in Fort Zumwalt. We already face significant challenges with rising operational costs and salary competitiveness in the county. Our neighboring districts in St. Louis County, who will not be impacted by Senate Bill 3, will have a funding advantage. This will make it harder for Fort Zumwalt to attract and retain teachers in our district. When funding is frozen, it will put an additional strain on our ability to offer competitive salaries, maintaining staffing levels, and keeping these programs to help students excel. Fort Zumwalt taxpayers have already told us time and time again that they value and support public education in the community. They have chosen to invest in our schools through local levies and tax bonds. They have chosen to invest in our schools in many different ways. This is not a one-size-fits-all, and this is replacing our community's voice with our Jeff City representatives coming at us. This is not a sound policy, it is politics and will harm our students, educators, and families in Fort Zumwalt. Just again, I look forward to working alongside all of you going into my term as FZA president, and if you have anything, reach out to me, and look forward to that working relationship. Thank you.
Next, we have our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve as presented.
I have a question.
Sure.
Has administration ever looked into free surveys like SurveyMonkey?
I'm going to have Ms. Waters answer that question about what Panorama.
A member of the public raised the issue, is $94,000. Have we explored that?
Panorama was compared to SurveyMonkey, so could you explain what Panorama actually is and why it's $94,000?
Yeah. Panorama is not just surveys, it's a platform that also houses lots of student information for us. For example, our reading success plans will all be in there. It pulls out of focus lots of data about student attendance, grades, gives teachers, counselors the ability to determine if we have at-risk students, how we're servicing those students. It's much more than just the surveys.
Okay, fair enough. Do we know if there are free platforms
There
out
are
that
some-
would do the same as Panorama?
The state does provide free surveys, yes.
but with all that content database as well that you'd mentioned?
Achieve the same end.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yep.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it also analyzes all of that data for us, makes it very manageable, easy for people to obtain, and make decisions in the best interest of students with that information.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
Yeah.
Dr. Smith, did you have anything to add to it?
The only thing I would add is it's integral in our ability to identify, intervene, and monitor the progress of those interventions for students who are at risk, as well as students who are excelling.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion, please. Mr. Howell, second. Dr. Marion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please note that Mr. Christopher abstained. Financial reports.
All right, good evening, thanks for having me. They haven't really changed too much from the 2 weeks ago when I was here, but there are highlights from the year end. We finished our operating funds finished with $1 million surplus. I know we were estimating around a 200 to 400, so that's always good news. It was solely just expenditures, supplies coming in under, because our revenues actually came in about $2 million under, so our expenditures came in $3 million under, which, is really good for us, and it helps us kind of forecast this year as well. Like, we can maybe knock down our supplies a little bit based on what we purchased. So of course, that's very favorable. Our fund balance is at 28%, which is about a third of the year. If we had no income in, we would still operate like as nothing happened, which is good. I think of that operating fund balance, you always say as a family or a person, you have an emergency cash savings, should cover a few months, so we have that. And then now we can move on to our, big ticket item, like if you're saving for a house purchase or a car, and that's our capital projects fund. And that balance actually finished at $4 million. It's the first time we've carried a balance in the fund. $2 million of that is set aside for storm repairs. MUSIC gave us an advance. We of course took it because now we don't have to pay out the money and wait for the money to come back. We actually are earning interest on it before we spend it, which I appreciate. So of that $4 million, we have a remaining $2 million that's available for future capital needs. That gives us some security. Say some year it's, we absolutely have to buy buses, but we don't have the operating funds for it. We now have that reserve fund to kind of lean back on. And I think that's going to be important over the next few years, just with the uncertainty we've discussed. There's really no update on the revenues. The state hasn't provided us any guidance, and their payments start coming in until later this month. The state did say with the payments they delayed in June that they were likely to be fulfilled in July. So some of that $2 million shortage from last year we might get this month. I don't know until I see it. Like I said, we don't have any updates, but I'm hopeful, and I do feel we have a strong budget in place to get through this year. And, we can forecast the future as we go. Any questions?
Questions? I need a motion to approve the financial reports. Mr. Christopher, second. Mr. Pratt, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. New business, Dr. Sinclair.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Good evening, members of the board. We have a couple of items in new business here tonight, and the first one is related to student cell phones. Senate Bill 68 was passed, signed into law, will go into effect August 28th, and it has a number of provisions that are going to touch our schools. Some of them will require some policy adjustments to be in compliance with the law. We have one of those to present to you here tonight, and this pertains to student use of cell phones and personal electronic communication devices. We've spent some time this summer in anticipation of this law going into effect, collaborating with our principals, trying to come up with a plan that we will be able to implement effectively. And Mr. Schulte is going to take us through the highlights of that plan.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. St. Pierre. So in the board policy, Jeremy Moore and myself have provided you with a memo that outlines the revisions to the policy along with JGR, which is the regulation that corresponds with our discipline, code of conduct, and discipline policies. So essentially, we are updating the personal communication devices policy to be compliant with the new statute that was signed as part of Senate Bill 68. So that language is in there. And then on the bottom of the memo, we've combined all of the progressive discipline that we've worked with our secondary administrators to develop. We've combined all of that as part of the memo so you can see what the progression would be as we work through it. We already had some discipline outlined in our policies related to cell phones. This policy has to do with all modes of communication and those devices. So it's not just specific to cell phones. It covers iPads, laptops, any communication device, including Apple Watches or any other watch that would be able to send and or receive messaging is covered in this Senate bill. So you can see the progression of discipline there. We thought it would be appropriate to continue with the practice that we have as far as working with our students and providing them opportunities to become compliant with the policy, and then you can see the progression there. The other component that we will be working with administrators on next week during our meeting has to do with how we will implement this policy. The statute actually takes effect on the 28th of August, but day one of our school year, the policy will be in place. So we're going to work with the buildings, work with our community, work with parents and students to help them understand what the change is and how we're going to roll this out. We're going to work with the kids and work with the staff to make sure they understand what's all involved with the new policy revision and the new state mandate, and then support the students the best we can to work through this. We do feel as though, as we were working on policies ourselves to try to limit the time that kids have the devices out during the instructional times, we were already working on that with the high school folks, and so this will absolutely help us with that. And the revisions to JGR, as far as the discipline, will make it clear for all of our community and staff members. So we think this will accomplish what we need to do and also keep us compliant with the mandate. Any questions you all have?
I have one question. You mentioned it covers all communication devices. You mentioned Apple Watches, smartwatches. Well, that made me, my only question about that is, on the first line here, it says they're prohibited from displaying or using. So does that mean they can't wear it?
We are, with the smartwatches, we are not going to go to that extreme. We are not looking at this as an opportunity to discipline kids. We will try to stay compliant with the mandate, support the kids, and protect the instructional time in the classroom. So our approach with the watches will be, if it's being utilized as a watch, then we're fine with it. The same as we would be if we can see the outline of a cell phone in a pant pocket, we're not going to address that. It's not being displayed, we're not using it inappropriately. If a student is using the watch to send and receive communication, and we know they're doing that, then we will remind them what their responsibility is and work with them through that process. But we're not going to be policing watches and everything else. That's not our intent.
Would that be considered the first offense?
If they're using
His
it,
text and his friends with his watch?
then according to the policy, that would be the first offense. Now, we do go through a period at the beginning of the year where we are preparing our kids for the school year. We are completing all of our discipline reviews with the kids, going over changes in policy. We have other changes in JGR as well. So we're going to educate the kids, help bring them along, and we also have to do a lot of education with the staff on what their responsibilities are. So we will have a period of time, same as we do with tardies at the beginning of the year, where kids are trying to figure out their schedules. When we get to the point where we feel as though everyone should have a good handle on this, then that's when we will start to implement the policy as it's prescribed here.
So we're talking 2 to 3 weeks, no specific deadline, but just when we feel like we have a handle on it, and then
Yes.
the kids.
Yes, we want to make sure, and we have a plan on how we will roll out communication to our parents, to the community, to our staff members. We're proactively developing all of that now, and we have all of that marked as far as timestamps of when that's going to go out, so that we can ensure that we can point to the documented communication that we've provided, and then all of the discipline reviews, so that when they're working with the students, they can reference that. And then when we get to a point where it becomes a hindrance and the student's been reminded, then at that point we'll go there we did not want to get into a situation where we're looking at suspending kids out of school for cell phone violations. With the administrators, we spoke about this being a logical progression of discipline. If in the event it escalates and there's disrespect or something else, then we will deal with that separately. But as far as the day-to-day cell phone violations, we figured this was a pretty good progression.
You may have mentioned this, and my mind was racing as I noticed we're all getting car washes right now. But did you say, are we sending out communication to parents
Yes.
ahead of the school year?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we will do that. We're going to provide them with the language from Senate Bill 68 as well as our stance on it. And so we will bring them along slowly with the intent of once the school year starts, everyone is well aware of the changes with Senate Bill 68.
And I think we're going to be intentional about sending out multiple exposures because we know that, at this time of the year, people aren't necessarily keyed into back-to-school information yet. So we're planning on some cascading information going on.
Will students still be allowed to use music devices like an iPod, something that doesn't send and receive, but maybe it
Not if they send and receive, then
I'm trying to think of what the right term is here.
Yeah.
I gotta work out with something.
The
It's just-
yellow
it's just my mind.
Walkman. Yeah.
Well, actually, my son's saying he needs a Discman.
So there
I'll
are
do that because apparently listening to mobile rap while he does math is pretty.
There are provisions in the policy as to when students would be allowed, whether it's through 504 IEP medical plans. We do have kids that monitor glucose levels and stuff. They won't be able to access music through anything that can send and receive.
Okay.
So we're going to work through this. This is something that the governor signed just a couple weeks ago, and there's other provisions in Senate Bill 68 that don't go into effect until 2026. This is one that goes into effect August 28th. So we're going to work with our families and work with our kids and navigate this. And so when there are unusual circumstances that come up, as far as the kids, who need the music for calming, whatever the case may be, again, this is not a gotcha. We want to continue to work with our community. So we're going to address that as it comes up and figure out how we need to handle it.
Since it's allowed for IEPs and 504s, what kind of scrutiny are we going to put on that? So
Well,
our IEPs don't double.
No, so it has to be directly related to the services that would be outlined in the IEP. So if a student has a need that's directly related to their diagnosis within the IEP, and it's something that's already in there, that would be an accommodation they would already have in place. It's not something where, if a parent just wants their child to have access to this or access to their phone, that's not necessarily an avenue that's going to be available to them unless it's directly related.
So just having an IEP doesn't cut it. It would have to be written into the IEP, which is agreed to by the whole IEP team, and it's an education, that's the school.
The IEP team would address the request if a parent were to make it, and we would look at the need and identify what are other opportunities to meet that same need. But the IEP team would actually decide whether or not it was required in order for the student to be provided a free appropriate public education.
Are SROs expected to enforce this, or is this teacher administration based?
So this would be a school function. There's not necessarily a civil charge for cell phone misuse. This is in the same realm as our bullying policy. There's a state mandate that describes specifically how we need to deal with bullying within the school setting, but a student's not going to be charged with bullying by a police officer. A police officer is not going to be enforcing the district's cell phone policy.
I have a question. It's about the confiscation side of this. It's kind of a two-part question. One, is there a plan for because some of these kids are very attached to their phones, like they can't live without them. So I guess I'm anticipating that child saying no and not getting the phone. Like how, is there some type of thought put to that thus far?
We are hoping that we will be able to partner with our parents and educate them, and proactively, if we have those situations, parents will be able to help us We understand that there's going to be situations where parents may not be able to get off work till 6 o'clock at night and the school day's over and my child needs the phone, so when they get off the bus, we will work with the parents individually on that. Again, our intent is not to escalate this into something else where we have a child who's going to be out of school, as far as suspension because of what started as a cell phone warrant. That's not the intent, but we are going to have to navigate that, and that's part of why we want to get out in front of it, educate parents, work with our staff before we go and implement this so that we're not provoking kids or not escalating situations that started with someone sending a text message to a friend.
The next part of that, I want to make sure we well within the line of legality as far as confiscating cell phones. I just want to make sure it's not any type of backlash we might face.
We are not planning on putting our staff in a situation where in the classroom they are going to be asked to take the phone away from the student. The way we set this up with our secondary administrators is that the student would come to the office, the administration would work with the student, and the student would leave the phone in the office with them. And then at the end of the day, they would come back and pick it up. So we don't want to harm the relationship between the student and the teacher or the staff member in the classroom. We're asking administration to work with the student on that. So if it does start to escalate, we feel as though the administrator would be more equipped to handle that in more of a private setting and not something as public as a classroom.
So, I just want to make sure, because I know somebody's going to ask, and I'm just talking about from a legal standpoint, it's going to come, they can't legally do that. So that's really what I'm referring to, because if you speak on that now, maybe this could be an answer people need to hear.
We can hold it in the office, knowing with the understanding that the student's going to come and get it at the end of the day, or that it's going to be turned off and the parent's going to come and get it. We have policy that also states that we're not responsible for the cell phones that are brought or any other personal item. And when students bring those, they bring them at their own risk. And that if it's causing a disruption in the school, we do have the ability to hold that for the student or the parent.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more thing on this, and I apologize, but it's a pretty big topic, I think. But I spoke with a doctor of psychology today about this. He's ecstatic. He thinks that cell phones have really been destroying our students, their attentive learning, personal contact. It's creating more and more social anxiety. How are we going to enforce this? Because when I look at these disciplinary outlines, at least through the number 1, 2, and 3 offense, it mirrors our current board policy.
It does.
That I don't think is really being enforced much. Are there going to be teacher incentives?
There's not going to be incentives. Our current board, or the board policy prior to this one, it gives us some flexibility that if the devices were going to be used for an educational purpose and the teacher gave them permission to utilize them in the classroom, they were allowed. So it was really up to the individual to enforce the policy. With this new mandate, in order for us to be compliant with the mandate, we are not allowing teachers that discretion. So cell phones are not allowed in our schools to be used or displayed or any other communicative device from bell to bell. It does not speak to transportation because that's before the bell. It doesn't speak to in the cafeteria before that official day starts. But once the official day starts, our directive to the administration and their directive to the teachers will be that we are not going to allow cell phones to be used. We provide our kids in grades 6 through 12 a device that should meet all of the educational needs that we are trying to accomplish in the classroom. So Jen Waters and her staff with technology are already looking at ways to support teachers to replace the use of the phones for surveys and other means that they've been using just because it's convenient. We feel as though we have the capabilities to provide what the kids need through our one device that the district gives them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great policy, and like your doctor friend said, it has been causing issues. And there's going to be growing pains. Young people are going to have to learn to adapt. And I think consistency in our buildings are going to be the key.
Absolutely, and we're going to work with them, and we're going to work with the kids and the families as we're implementing this. And hopefully, 6 to 8 weeks down the road, this has just become the new norm, and this is what's expected. And just like the rest of our policies, everyone will understand what the progression is and how it's going to be dealt with.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add in there too that cell phones are, it's not just the students, it's staff as well. That when they're teaching, when they're in charge, we have policy on that, but that needs to be hit home as well. Because if I walk through a building like I have in past years and I'm constantly seeing teachers on their cell phones or staff members, that's gonna be a really big issue.
Sure.
And I think kids are gonna look at that and say, what, right? So I think everybody we gotta start this year on the same page.
Yeah, that's on our agenda to speak with the administration on. Certainly, our staff are not covered or bound by this Senate bill, but it's always a good reminder to talk with staff about if you're using your personal device for school-related issues and responsibilities, maybe that's appropriate. But if we're in charge of supervision of kids and the instruction in the classroom, that is not a time where we should be on our personal device for personal reasons and not work-related.
Great. I need a motion to approve the cell phone policy as presented.
Motion.
Mr. Kraft, second. Mr. Christopher, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Next item, we have our extra pay, extra duty recommendations that came from our task force meeting. Mrs. Williams worked with our extra duty task force and has those recommendations to present to you tonight.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. So in front of you, you have the recommendations from the task force. As you probably remember, at the May meeting, you all approved for our task force to meet in accordance with the policy. We did that, let's see, on June 18th. We met with 5 activity sponsors regarding 14 positions or activities associated, positions associated with those activities. And the task force is recommending a point change, increase, or an additional position based on participation for 9 of those, and 5 of those not making any changes for. So the total cost with the point, the price per point, which was in our negotiated agreement, would be $37,555 to increase those points. So that is the recommendation of the task force, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I need a motion to approve the extra pay, extra duty task force recommendations as presented. Mr. Helms, second. Dr. Marion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right.
Thank you. Next item is Senate Bill 3. You have a memo from me in your board packet pertaining to this matter. Just give a little bit of a recap. The special legislative session that was called to address tornado recovery and incentivizing professional sports teams to remain in Missouri. Towards the end of that session, tax relief was added, and there is a provision in Senate Bill 3 that addresses that. Essentially, all of the counties in Missouri were divided into 3 categories. Counties that would be unaffected by any new legislation, counties that would have a 5% cap placed upon any future tax liability for residential properties, and then counties that would have a 0% cap, or what are referred to as 0% counties, meaning there can be no increase to most residential property tax values based off of the 2024 value. St. Charles County has been placed in that 0% category, along with about 20 other counties in Missouri, and there are about 20 or so counties that are placed in that 5% group. The rest are in the unaffected categorization. So the way the law is now, and it has been signed into law, goes into effect, like our cell phone law goes into effect on August 28th. The law calls for this to go to the voters of the county by April of 2026, no later than April of 2026. If approved, that effective tax freeze would go into effect for the 26-27 school year. And again, that looks back to the 2024 tax rate for those residential properties. I listed projected impacts. Those are tough to really precisely pinpoint, but we have what we believe are conservative estimates at this point in time. They may very well exceed that, but in the first year of implementation, we expect a $2.5 million impact in terms of loss of projected revenue, and that number certainly will escalate from there. We know that federal funding has been cut. We are expecting more cuts from federal funding. We know that the state foundation formula is being rewritten. We don't anticipate that that is going to be in the favor of public schools. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but we're not optimistic about what that might look like. And then there's local tax money, which is the bulk of our revenue that comes in, and that's what's in jeopardy here with Senate Bill 3. So we are being told to prepare for more cuts, regardless of what happens with Senate Bill 3. So this is kind of part of a bigger discussion as well. But what we're talking about here is Senate Bill 3. Obviously, we know everybody would love to have their taxes not increase or pay less in taxes. The problem is this is the way the system is set up. Schools operate on tax revenue, as do other entities. We have a fantastic school district. We live in a great county. We have wonderful public services, wonderful parks, first responders, top notch. Unfortunately, sustaining these cuts, coupled with rising costs for operations, for other expenses that happen on an annual basis, we fear we would have to start reducing services. This is a really difficult issue to wrestle with. It is. It's one that I'm glad that we're talking about in a transparent manner. It's a difficult discussion, difficult decision. We do believe, however, that the bill is in violation of the Missouri Constitution in several capacities. And given that piece, and given the significant financial impact that this is projected to have on all of our taxing entities, I have those motions prepared for your consideration in the packet to approve the district's participation as a plaintiff or as a cost-sharing party in a lawsuit challenging the property tax credit provisions of Senate Bill 3, and then if approved to retain legal firm 2 of the Keeney to prepare, file, and pursue such a lawsuit and final judgment. What we do know is that 2 other area districts have already committed to this, one last night, one late last week. We anticipate that others will, and we anticipate that there may be other taxing entities who will also be negatively affected, who will consider being engaged with that. Estimates that we have at this point in time is the question, which is a good one. How much would this cost us? We have an estimate at this point in time. It's an estimate, but we believe that the total cost for this lawsuit would be around $30,000 to $50,000. That would get divided by the number of participants. We don't know how many participants we will have yet, so it's difficult to really identify that. What we anticipate having is an engagement, if this is approved by the board, an engagement letter that would come back that would help further define what some of those costs might be, because by then we may know how many participants we would have. Okay. That is the issue, and those are the recommendations. Certainly understand that there may be questions, and I'm happy to talk through that.
If I may, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. St. Pierre and Madam President, for having this in open session. we're the only district, to my knowledge, that's going to discuss this amongst the public, so I appreciate that. And I want to say the one last night was in consent agenda. I don't even know that that's legal, but thank you. I appreciate that we're discussing this out in the open. So does SB 3 cap, or does it allow the taxpayers to vote on it in April?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Does SB 3 actually put the cap in place, or does it allow our community to vote on it in April?
The community would be voting to accept this categorization of a 0% cap.
So they could accept or they could decline, correct?
That's correct.
Does it allow the community to vote on future increases in the future? No, I just said future twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes, so nothing would prohibit, if this were approved by the voters from the school district, going back to the voters and asking for a tax levy increase, is that the question?
Yes, so it's
Yeah.
allowed, okay.
That is allowed.
And I know I asked you this the other day, but just for the community, I mean, I asked you, is there a lawsuit for us to look at? Is it?
Right, there is not one yet.
So we're voting on something that doesn't
We're
even
voting
exist?
to participate and to be a participant.
If and
in-
when?
Yeah.
Who do we see as the main plaintiff?
I don't know that we know that just yet.
Can we speculate?
I
Because we already
don't-
are.
Yeah, I do not know. I do not know. I couldn't speculate, honestly. I can tell you the affected counties. I can tell you the unaffected counties. I could probably tell you the unaffected counties are not having these discussions. They're unaffected.
Again, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, the district is. My point of view is that our taxes have just jumped in the last few years, ever since COVID. I would say just artificially increasing there's no way my house is worth as much as it is, and I think that'll get put back in its place here shortly. But we've had massive tax increases, and we have a lot of constituents to think about. And, I mean, it is our students, but it is, the grandmother who had the audacity to buy 2 acres in St. Paul 35 years ago, getting taxed to no end. It's homeschoolers, yes, it's our students at West, North, South. It's homeschoolers. And it's a lot of people being affected by this. And it's a temporary cap that could be raised, but I'm also quite wondering, is this electioneering? Missouri has an anti-electioneering law, correct?
Yeah, correct, yeah, and we cannot as employees or as public officials work to promote or denounce any ballot initiative. This is not a ballot initiative at this point in
Or
time.
can we stomping out a vote in April?
The issue is questioning the constitutionality of the statute or.
Okay.
It's a law that's already been passed and signed, so there's no electioneering. Here's my issue with it, and I get all those points, God knows I'd love to pay fewer taxes right here. But this,
Speak up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll get my
My concern is this is just a bad bill, it's a bad law, okay? Because one, it creates 3 different categories of people, right? So some people get free and clear, no issues. Those people are probably mad and would like theirs capped too, but for some reason, they're arbitrarily allowed to be okay. It's got politics written all over it, if you ask me. So I believe it is unconstitutional, but you gotta have a lawsuit to do that. And sure, we might spend $30,000, $50,000, but the potential what we will lose, because who is not gonna vote for 0%? If you're not the one making the decisions, truly. Now, there'll be some, but we can't expect people not to vote for it. So that's not even an issue for me. If there's a vote, if this law polls and the voters vote for it, we'll deal with it. But I think it's a bad law. I think it's unconstitutional. And when something's unconstitutional, you gotta stand up and say it. It's another example of the state continuing. They have created the system that has put it on the local taxpayers. They have just failed to support public education, say, well, if you want better schools, let the local taxpayers do it. So they've created this monster, and now they want to pull the rug out from it. No, take your responsibility in this. Don't just now say, well, districts, deal with it, we're gonna take all this money away, which is in essence what they're doing. But not you guys, and to you guys, not quite as much. It's horse crap. That's my thought. I will, for whatever it's worth.
It definitely creates an economic divide among people. in the
Yeah,
community.
which we've already done with the, based on, we already have created the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
And this just perpetuates it.
So I have a question, Brian, you might have to help with this one. So hypothetically speaking, goes through, would it save taxpayers I guess I'm trying to understand, is it more on taxpayers to approve a levy, to pay for a levy versus leaving our tax revenue the way it is? And I know it's really deep, it's a tough question to answer, I get it, so if you say I can't answer it now, I get it.
I would say if we were to propose an increase, like say it passes and then we say we can't function, we propose an increase, we would try to just increase it to the point where it's recovering what we lost. So we wouldn't necessarily, like the homeowner, and really if you think some of that increase is gonna go to the corporations, you know, this bill only affects single-family non-rentals. So it would be spread out to homeowners, like, I was looking just at an average homeowner, the first year approximately they'd save 200 to 250, and then maybe if we had that tax increase, they might only save 20, right? Because the tax increase is gonna be spread too against the commercial property owners and the landlords. So they're gonna end up paying more taxes, whereas the residential, really their share won't be as.
And I should point out, Mark, I completely respect your opinion.
You're fine. And I agree. I don't like the way that this came to us in the state
I'm irritated
package.
with the legislature and the state because this is the kind of games they always play and we
They
get
attach
caught
it
in
to
them.
something that's
So, but I totally get Mark's point of view completely.
I mean, this isn't, someone earlier said that this is gonna take money away from the district. It's not taking money away, it's only going to, you know, cap it or keep it from growing temporarily. I mean, as soon as someone sells their house, it's gonna get reassessed at the correct rate, right? Yes?
That's how the law is, that's how we're interpreting it, is if someone sells it, we put it in our estimates, they include a turnover. So that 2.5 million assumes the regular house turnover, so we didn't take 100% of our non-rental residential. We really backed the number down to be conservative.
I have concerns with who we might be partnering with on this lawsuit. I think there's a very big possibility this would be with the Missouri NEA.
I'm not.
We're all speculating tonight.
I really do not know.
I mean, in February, their chief counsel testified before the Missouri House to allow boys and girls sports. I don't think I want to be associated with an attorney like that. And again, it doesn't even exist. It's going to probably happen, but right now it doesn't exist. And at the moment, I think we should table this issue. I'll make a motion right now to table it. Can I have a second?
I'll second. I think we should vote on that.
Roll call, please. To be clear,
Are we, this is the roll call to vote, to table? Vote to
Yeah, make sure we
table.
know we're voting.
Yeah.
Mrs. Powers? No. Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Christopher?
No.
Dr. Marion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bird?
No.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes, table it. Is this where JD Vance goes out, or?
Oh, Tommy's not.
Oh, Tommy's
What?
Tommy's not here.
Picked a bad night not to come, Tom.
Now we gotta really go back to Robert. What does it say? It says,
No, okay.
well, I know, we didn't get a majority either way. I don't know what the answer is. This has never happened to me before either.
Yeah, but it doesn't pass. That would be worth it.
Tie goes to the table.
To the right. No, no, that's right.
Yeah.
Could we take a recess
We might
to
have to take a
research it,
recess.
make a call?
Leave your
Get it
wallets
right.
on the table.
I could use the bathroom anyway.
What, do we have to get a hold of the parliamentarian, or what?
I think they're.
Okay.
According to AI, a tie is not a majority. A tie vote means that the motion did not receive a majority in favor.
Right, which means it doesn't pass, which means
The
it's not
table
tabled.
does not pass.
Right, now,
Okay.
we go back to the original motion to consider. Forcing the vote on the other one, basically, unless somebody throws it.
Right, which we don't have that motion
We
yet.
don't have that motion, but that could be a motion. I don't know if it's gonna be a different vote than it just was, but it's either, now either somebody recommends we withdraw it, or we vote on it.
The withdrawing would be, we never talk about it again.
I motion we withdraw.
Nick?
Now, that doesn't.
Is that gonna go 3-3-2?
Here's my thing with discussion here. I support the lawsuit, but I think he makes a good point who we're in bed with, and I'm pro NEI.
It's not even here.
Right, it has nothing to do with that, who it is, but I think that there are some unknowns there that I hadn't thought about that. So that gives me a little bit of pause. I think that's a decent.
Not to mention, this could be interpreted as electioneering. I mean, you're gonna join the lawsuit to stop out of vote.
I'm against it wholeheartedly, and if forced to vote for it, if we vote for it, I think I will, but here's the thing. How fast, let me ask you this, because I think this is just about thinking this through, not rushing something. Because, and I should have done more thought ahead of time, I'll be the first to say it, I'm not trying to pull the rug out from anybody. But we've never undergone anything like this, undertaken anything. So is there an advantage?
This board has
Just
sued the
taking
state
a
of
little-
Missouri before.
Just taking another
No, we
month
have
to
not.
think about it, do a little more research.
COVID
I
masking?
don't know.
We did
I
not
don't-
sue the state of Missouri. Please get your facts straight.
All right. I remember a special session meeting, but,
And we did not sue. They were threatening to sue us.
okay.
I missed that whole thing, so I apologize. But my point is, this election, how fast, I mean, there's certain, I don't know how fast this election could come up to voters. I think we got a little time, I don't think it can come up that fast, could it? Anybody have an idea?
November.
November?
November would be the soonest. Yeah.
Right, so my only thought is there value? And if the majority thinks or not, I don't care. Is there value in taking a moment, or even a couple weeks and having a special, like you suggest, to consider just all those little things, and just so we can know some of those answers before we rule out some things? That's all. Because, I'm not against it at all. I'm pro this. But I do want to make sure we don't step into something that we might not know we're stepping in. There's just something niggling at me a little bit.
That's fine. Do we have an idea on the timeline of the urgency of us making this decision?
Let's see, I'm looking at Laura here. There is I think we talked about this, but there is a statutory deadline by which items need to be prepared for ballot, and that is,
I'm looking at the Secretary of State's website.
we know that
I
it would not
believe
appear
that
in
the
August
July 29th is the deadline for the November
for the
ballots.
November election. Yeah.
But let me just confirm that for you, Dr. St. Pierre.
Thank you.
And we're still discussing? Okay. Is there any, because there is lots of speculation going on here tonight, and you brought up a question, is it electioneering? We think not, but we're not lawyers.
We have a legal opinion on that.
Did you
I
have
asked
that?
that
Okay.
specific question because I was, concerned about the same thing, and I was told by our legal counsel that does not qualify because it has not,
So
it's
my
not a ballot
question
issue.
is, we have brought our counsel into closed session for such discussions, just to make sure we all are comfortable. Could we do that in this case? And not vote on it until we've had a back and forth with our attorney, so that all 7 of us are comfortable with what those answers are. That would just be another thought. I just want to make sure that we're, considering everything.
I can definitely tell you on the electioneering piece, I've asked that specific question. It's a good question. And was told that we are not out of compliance on that piece. I'm not sure at what point in time we would learn who the other parties are. I'm not sure how that timing would coalesce with when we need to make the decision,
Right.
if that makes sense.
But I think some of those, like having the discussion now, some people might come up with new questions. And would an opportunity to have those questions discussed make us a more comfortable decision? If we vote on tonight, we vote on tonight. I'm just saying those are alternatives. Because the question could be, we vote tonight, and then whenever the lawsuit does get filed, and we've agreed tonight to lock into it, and there is something about it we don't like, what are our options then? I don't know.
There's two different motions on the floor here. One is sharing it and one is not.
One is what?
One is going into it with the party, the cost sharing, and one is
Gotcha.
us retaining and having them file stuff. So there are two things here.
That's true, good point.
I'm sorry, please explain that. There are two, we're voting, we have two different votes here on this memo?
Yeah, at the bottom
Two
of it,
possible
the two
motions,
different ones.
yes.
Okay.
It's two
Yeah.
motions, so.
Well, yeah, doing it and the cost of it. We can.
So you're saying we could, in theory, we could reject one, approve the other, we could retain the attorney who might have just filed something on our behalf and our behalf alone?
Yes, I don't know, I'm not a legal strategist, but I don't know that there will be value in having multiple lawsuits filed on one issue because.
I mean, that was a theoretical,
Yeah.
rhetorical kind of thing. I mean, I think the point is, it's more consultation with our attorney, so we can get that with the second one. I don't know, I've talked enough. I think, my only point is, if this election, if the danger, if we have time to just make sure we dot our i's and cross our t's and we all feel comfortable with how we're voting, I think that would be good, there'd be value to it. But if we feel like, and maybe this is the case, that's what I need you to tell me, if the attorneys are telling you, we gotta do this tonight, we gotta move fast, tell me. That'll change my mind.
Well, I don't think the time is the pressure to make the decision. I guess from my perspective, I think it is more about the essence of the issue that is the big driver here for the decision. We don't want you to feel pressured because of time. So if that is if that's what's the reason for the cause for the hesitation, then we can come back and revisit this at a later time. The issue will still be the issue.
All right. So it sounds like we're probably are in favor of two, tabling one.
I don't know if we can say that, but
I mean, in the motion, we're trying to.
well, I think you just gotta deal with both motions and see where they fall. I think at this point, everybody knows what everybody's concerns are, I think, so if you're asking me, I'd say we just do motion one, do motion two, see what happens.
Since we have new information that timeliness is not an issue, do we want to go back, or are we able to go back to the table vote?
I don't know how you can say timeliness isn't an issue though, because they can very well put it on the November ballot, which they would have to have in by the end of this month.
But
So
wouldn't we be able to vote in our August meeting then to be part of it?
Yeah,
They're out of session, aren't they?
The lawsuit would likely be filed at or shortly after August 20th. So as far as lead time to determine the number of parties that are going to be involved prior to that lawsuit being filed, I do know the lawsuit would not be filed until the law goes into effect itself, which that doesn't happen until August 28th. How much?
What other two districts have done this?
And as far as public record of that is City of St. Charles and Orchard Farm School District.
I'm comfortable voting now, but with our next meeting, the 21st, which is before they'd even be able to file it, so if that's an option, if other people would feel more comfortable, and we could get our 7th person in to be able to have input, and I can change the vote to be able to table it.
We'd still be voting on a lawsuit that hasn't even started.
But we can talk about that in August.
Once it's filed, we would not be able to join in. After the fact, we may be able to contribute financially if the board decided to do that.
So you're saying that if we wait until August to vote on this, it's gonna be there's a possibility for it to be too late for us to be.
To be 7 days
No, he
before the
said-
deadline?
Yeah, he said August 28th is when they'll file
But
it.
if they've already,
They already filed. Sure.
no, not,
They could file
But-
it.
That's what I'm trying to, is there a way that we can be kept out of this if we wait till our August meeting?
I would say that's possible. Yeah, I don't have the timelines down. I'm not exactly sure how tight those are. I know the lawsuit would not be filed until the law goes into effect. But
The lawsuit will not be filed until the law goes into effect, and the law goes into effect on August 28th.
Right,
So
but-
the lawsuit cannot be filed until the 28th?
Correct, but there's prep work that goes into it.
So it's whether they will let us join at the last minute.
These are questions our attorney can answer. That's why I was saying we should wait, let these back and forth, what if that person, because we're guessing, we don't know. So let's not try to be attorneys, that's all I'm saying. We don't know if we'd be left out or not. Fair?
Fair.
If we have time.
I welcome the idea to, consult with our attorney. That would have to be in closed session, but, I just want to make sure that if and when this is voted on, that we're going to be transparent and have this in open session in the future.
Would it make sense to have a special closed session between now and?
We can call a special meeting.
Next meeting between then, so we can do this a little sooner.
So table the closed session to make sure that we definitely get in before.
Okay.
All right. We have that Q&A with stuff.
So I motion to table until we have closed session with our council.
At a special meeting.
True. Motion.
need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Powers?
No.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Christopher?
No.
Dr. Marion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bird?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.
Just fast, fast,
So,
fast closed session.
sooner and later.
All right.
That's it?
Great, next we have comments from the ward. Start with you, Dr. Marion.
Oh, thank you. I would like to give congratulations to orchestra teacher Cynthia Klickner, who got a surprise announcement before the final South Middle School concert of the school year. She's the Mid-Rivers Newsweek Magazine Teacher of the Year for St. Charles County. The magazine gets hundreds of essay-style nominations, and Klickner was selected. She's featured in a recent article online and received several gifts from local businesses that sponsor the award. So, good job, Cynthia Klickner. And I think that's it.
First off, I'd like to just say I respect everybody's opinions about what we're talking about. This is important. It's not easy decisions. Doing what's best for kids is not always easy. And so I just want to assure everybody we are going to look at this and we are going to do our very best to do what's best for the school district. So, going on from that, shout out to West High choir teacher Patrick Dell, who is helping the Missouri State High School Athletic Association to celebrate its 100th anniversary. Congratulations to him. He was commissioned to create an arrangement of the national anthem that is being performed by student musicians across the state. throughout the school year and was recorded featuring the combined all-state bands, choirs, and orchestra last spring. So that's a pretty impressive thing for her.
Mr. Pratt?
Sure. So I'll kind of echo Mr. Christopher's comments about, I'm glad we're discussing this and speaking about it. This would be, my view, it would be a temporary freeze on taxes that have just been, again, skyrocketing. And it gives the taxpayers in our community a chance to vote on it, which I think is always a good idea. Okay, moving forward on a lighter side of things. So the Future Business Leaders of America, several Support Zumwalt students went and some congratulations to number 1 West High's Ben Kirikabram. He was the FBLA state champion in digital video production. We have Akash Sass, recognized as Future Business Leader, and Ishan Joshi, FBLA state champion in accounting. Congratulations to East High qualifiers, Aaron Shemansky, my sister's friend, or my daughter's friend, in business ethics, and then Elias Lindemann at the help desk. One more here. So this is for our STEM project Lead the Way showcase. Seniors from East and North participated. We have Madeline Carroll, North High Biomed, won the Best Overall Biomedical Science Award for her shoulder rehabilitation device. Gregory Hauser, Chase Ostman, and Nathaniel Provost, North High Engineering, won the Prototype Pro Award for their improved design of a shopping cart. We have Ryan Krause from North High Biomed, won the STEMinist Award for her work investigating sleep disturbances for breast cancer patients undergoing taxa? Okay, well, a certain kind of treatment, my apologies. We have Caitlin Lindemann, Gabriel Ostrander, Cameron Parker, Jackson Parks, and Keegan Thornton from East High Engineering won the Logistics Mastermind Award for their system to properly dispose of space junk. One more, Mariah Lewis, North High Biomed, won the St. Louis Science Center's Communicator Award for her DIY guide to safe and effective at-home insulin production. So congratulations, students. Thank you.
Ms. Berg, sorry.
Mayor, I wanted to echo the sentiments. I am glad we're able to have important discussions. I very much want to protect public education as much as possible, but I also respect and want people to feel comfortable with the decisions and make sure that people can be represented with our decisions. So being able to have everyone here, I think, would be great. But yes, sooner. And I want to thank everyone who helped with all the contracts and what was required with all those quick changes. I know that wasn't easy. I want to call out, I love seeing all those extracurricular like the activities for our students. We had like over 20 pages, so that was really awesome to get to see all of that. And then finally, the Fort Zumwalt School District Educator of the Year, Crystal Detterding, is among 10 awardees for the Missouri Regional Teacher of the Year for the St. Louis region. She will be honored as a recipient in August and is now eligible to complete the application for the Missouri State Teacher of the Year. Congratulations.
Mr. Helms?
Okay. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you, admin. You do a phenomenal job for us. Or for the district, I'm sorry. First thing I want to do is give a congratulations to West Middle 8th grade choir. They received a score of 96%, which is a superior rating, and they're in first place in their category at the annual Music in the Parks contest. They were also named the top performing choir overall for middle school choirs, which is a good job. I also want to give a congratulations to East High math teacher Erin Coleman. She's the 2024-2025 Mighty Mentor. The Mighty Mentor Award recognizes a veteran educator who has shared their experience by mentoring a first-year teacher in their school. One nomination read, being a brand new teacher was difficult, but having the most knowledgeable and selfless mentor made my transition so much easier. Thank you, Erin, and congratulations.
So the MLB had their draft, and one of our former students from North High was selected as a New York Mets in the 8th round. Number 253 overall. His name is Camden Lowen. I can talk right. Right-handed pitcher from North High School. So congratulations to him, and it'll be awesome. Hopefully we get to see him playing out there at Busch Stadium. All right, with that, we're going into closed session. Please note this concludes our agenda. We will not return to open session after closed session. I need a motion to go into closed session in accordance with RMSO 610.021 to discuss the approval of minutes from the June 30th, 2025 closed session meeting and student personnel.
Motion.
Mr. Helms, second. Mr. Pratt, roll call, please.
Mrs. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Helms?
Yes.
Mr. Christopher?
Yes.
Dr. Marion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bird?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.